Welcome to Consulting Mastery, where we help B2B consultants master the business of consulting. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Ahmed. Join us as we explore the art of delivering outstanding client value, earning a higher income, and thriving in today's marketplace.
How important are your innate skills and gifts when it comes to building a successful consulting business?
Critically important. You should only do things that build on the strengths that you were born with.
That you were born with.
Yes. Whatever was with you when you came out of the womb, just focus on those things. You can't do anything else
Excellent.
outside of
Okay.
that.
Episode
Let's
over.
not get crazy here. End episode. Therefore, don't do anything. Obviously, I'm joking. We had an interesting conversation about this with some clients earlier today. And the question was, how do you know what your strengths are, first of all? How do you know what gifts you have? And how do you know the extent of those strengths if you don't put yourself in situations where the scope of your strengths could be expanded?
Yeah, and I
What
think
was the question?
it's super fascinating for us in terms of what we do, because we have people who we work with who are brilliant, right? They have built this skill set that is often unparalleled. They have a ton of experience. They've served a bunch of, they've made a bunch of impact serving a whole wide variety of people. And what's really, really interesting is watching them go from that place to recognizing a whole list of other gifts and talents and skills that they have or that they want to build. And there was a conversation on the call today about when you get to a certain age, you kind of feel like you're cooked, right? You're done, you're finished. And what is the most fascinating thing to watch, and to me, the most valuable exercise that we can all go through, is not just uncovering more and more of those skills and strengths and gifts that exist already within you that maybe you either did or didn't know about, but also recognizing that you can continue to add to that list and put more really valuable tools in your toolbox.
To me, this really gets to the heart of this idea of growth versus fixed mindset, right? Great book on the topic. Something that I think most people are familiar with, the idea that folks with a growth mindset are able to grow, learn new things, acquire new capabilities. And these people generally experience better outcomes in all facets of life because they believe that they can grow to encounter a challenge or to capitalize on an opportunity, right? They can get there. Whereas folks with a fixed mindset who just fundamentally don't believe they can do anything outside of what they're already doing, they're not capable of much more. It's like, this is how I was born. These are my innate skills and strengths, and this is what I got, and that's it. They don't do as well in all facets and all domains of life. And I think it's the thing that we encounter with clients is, to your point, they're all credible subject matter experts in their specific domain, whatever that is. Most of them, the vast majority, even if they are marketers, which is interesting, have a certain discomfort with marketing and business development, whether it's being the talking head or getting exposure or putting themselves out there or having powerful sales conversations where you empower prospects to make the right decision. This makes people uncomfortable. And they come to I think everyone comes to a point in their business journey where they have to decide, am I going to acquire the skills to do these things, marketing, creating demand, sales, etc., or what, right? Because if I can't do these things, can I hire somebody? Do I outsource it? And that's where I think a lot of people get to eventually. And then, and frankly, if you decide that you want to outsource it or hire somebody else to do it for you, that doesn't always work out well for reasons we've talked about previously.
Yeah, absolutely. And growth versus fixed mindset is a really interesting thing, because I think intellectually we can all read the book and we can all understand why having a growth mindset is going to be the thing that gets us where we need to go. But truly getting your headspace, into that zone is an entirely different exercise. And, we talked today on the call that we were on, and it's probably worth talking about here as well. How do we even get there? Because to your point, there are things that if you are launching a business or growing your business or scaling your business, that you realize aren't necessarily, skills that you are either A, really good at, or B, practicing. But you recognize there's a gap. You recognize that that's a thing that your business needs. And so, the question today that we were trying to answer, someone in particular on the call was very specifically focused on, like, how do I get there quickly, right? How do I get to that place where I can shift my mindset, build those skills and move forward? And that's what we all want once we recognize what the gap is. And so, let's talk maybe about the 3 or 4 things that you can do to be able to shift the way that you think in a way that allows you to grow in those areas that you have already identified as being critical to your business.
I think number one, you have to have a belief that there are talents and there are skills and there are strengths that you have not yet developed. There's latent potential sitting there that you haven't potentially had the need to capitalize on, but that you could capitalize on under the right circumstances. I think that belief is central to a growth mindset.
Well, and let's sort of add to that, because I think the thing that is really helpful when you think in that way is recognizing all of the other things that you used to not know how to do, that you used to not be good at, that you acquired. And sometimes the skill that you need to recognize is not the particular skill, right? The specific thing that you want to be able to do, but the skill to recognize is your ability to learn, right? Your ability to take on board new new skills, your ability to develop and move forward. And if you can recognize that, it tends to make it a lot easier than focusing on, I don't know how to jump off a high diving board. Well, yes, that may be true, but I learned how to drive a car. I learned how to do a million other things in my life. I'm sure that if I break it down and work through the steps, I can do the thing.
Yeah, that's like the master skill,
Yes.
right? That ought to give you confidence that you can acquire any skill that you reasonably need to acquire. I always thought it was really interesting. One of Tim Ferriss's books, I think it was
The Chef.
It was one of the earlier ones after 4 Hour Work Week. Yeah, the 4 Hour Chef, right? He always said, this is not a book about cooking. It's a book about learning, right? He just broke down the process of cooking into a process where you could master the skill in the fastest possible time frame. But you could take that process, that pedagogy, if you want to call it that, and you could apply that to any new skill that you want to acquire. And the more you get used to doing this, you acquire a new skill, you master it to the extent that you need to master it. Then you go to the next one and the next one, the next one. What you end up with is just this repertoire of skills that makes you, dangerous as a business person. We were talking earlier about, in business, I alluded to this earlier. It's my personal belief that you've got to have working knowledge and working capability in all of the domains in business if you want to be a founder or an entrepreneur. That includes marketing, that includes sales, that includes client delivery, that includes operations, that includes leadership and management. Like, you've got to have a working capability in each of these areas. That doesn't mean that you have to do all of them forever. You might hire people, you might outsource, etc. But to get things going off the ground and certainly to grow, you're going to have to know enough to be dangerous.
Absolutely. So number one, recognize that there are, latent abilities. There are abilities you haven't uncovered yet. Number two, have confidence in the notion that you can, in fact, learn new things, right? Gain new skills and decide how dangerous you want to become. That's number three.
Number three is, I think, learn how to identify what's required of you based on the conditions and the circumstances that you're facing. Right. So the question that came up today was, well, how do I know what gift to open, what skill to acquire, what capability to hone? And the answer is, well, what do you need right now? What's the obstacle? What's the roadblock? What's the bottleneck preventing your business from getting better results? If you need more leads, then you better become a better marketer. If you have lots of leads and you're talking to lots of prospects, you're not closing enough deals, you better get better at sales. If you got lots of clients, but they're not sticking around for long enough, or they're not upgrading, or you're not getting referrals, probably get better at delivery, and so on and so forth, right? Look at the circumstances that you're in your business. Look at the bottleneck, as we talked about it before. And whatever that is, if you don't have the skill, you don't have somebody on your team that has the skill already, that's probably the area of growth that you need to explore.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then let's add number 4. Number 4 is really about recognizing when you are developing and have developed the skill. Because this is the other fascinating thing that happens, right? Is that you're plugging along, you're doing your thing, you're trudging along new paths, and then suddenly you look backwards. And in looking backwards is only when you realize that you've actually figured out that you have a talent, that you have a gift, that you have a skill. And there's a real necessity to figure out where that feedback is going to come from. Because it's almost as dangerous to be doing something well and not realize it for a really long time as it is to not do it well at all. I mean, there's a risk there. And so, what you don't want to do is stop yourself from really, deploying all of your talents. And so the other thing I encourage everyone to do is figure out, how are you going to know if you are in fact getting better at something, right? If this is in fact now a skill that you can say, yep, it's something that's in my toolbox, it's something that I can use. Or if it is in fact a gift, right? If it's a thing that you are starting to realize that you are better than most, right? That you're world class, that this is a thing that you want to be able to continue to leverage and build on moving forward, because it's going to be a unique skill for you.
So how do you do that?
Excellent question. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's all about just looking around for any kind of feedback that you can get. So that may be feedback like from an actual human, right? Someone who sees you work, somebody who you have, if you're, in a consulting scenario, someone that your clients, for example, that you're working with, or people that you are working side by side with, folks who can observe you, but who won't always tell you, right? So there's an opportunity always to just ask the question, right? How am I doing here? What are you seeing? Or is there something I can do differently or better? Some people are great at asking for and receiving feedback. Others not so much, right? We kind of just wait around and hope that we can assess ourselves well, which is really hard to do. So, asking or looking around for feedback is important. And then, of course, some of that just comes to you naturally. So if we talk about something as, much more easily measurable, which is sales, for example, right? If you know that you've had 10 calls with potential clients and you have closed, 1 deal versus 3 deals versus 7 deals across time, there's data that you can just plain collect. And it is important to collect that data, because especially if you are developing a skill that you're not comfortable with, you are going to either overplay or underplay your level of ability. Most often in sales, what we see is underplaying, right? I'm not doing very well, I'm not good at it, blah, blah, blah. And so ensuring that you can, wherever it's available, actually get hard data and compare time period over time period is going to give you an objective view. And that's what really this is all about, right? Is understanding objectively if you have picked up the skill or uncovered the gift.
Yeah, I think last thing I'll say about this is there's the strengths that have gotten you to where you are right now, and there's the strengths that'll get you to the next level. And I think a really interesting exercise to go through is define your next level, define where you want to be, what you want your business to look like, what kind of results you want to experience business wise, professionally, personally, etc. And then make a list of, where's the skills gap? Where's the strengths gap? Like, where do you need to acquire or further develop a capability in order to do the things that you want to do? And that kind of becomes your roadmap, right? Then just start checking those off as they become relevant, as they become appropriate. Some are probably more immediate than others, but now you got a roadmap. And the truth is that uh, the difference between the results you have and the results that you want to have simply come down to capabilities. It comes down to skills. If you were able to do the things that you need to do to get the results that you want to have, you would do them. So acquire the skills, put them to good use, and the results follow.
Yeah, and given the people that we are quite likely talking to, on this podcast, in these episodes, I just want to call out that can be an uncomfortable feeling. And that's when you know you're doing it right. Because if you can uncover what looks like a gap, right? In some cases, a big, dark chasm of ability that you need to develop, that's the thing that tells you that there's so much more ahead of you, right? That there is, such an upside. Because if you're adding a skill that you don't currently have or you don't feel confident about, if you can add that, that's where the big leap comes, right? That's where the big jump comes. That's where the big level up occurs. It rarely occurs from you just doing the thing you're already really great at a tiny bit better. So, I encourage you as you go through that exercise and map out the skills that you know you need to acquire as you move forward, to look for the ones that make you feel the most uncomfortable.